The black transport ship moved through deep space without a sound. Its hull was painted with no symbols, no country, no name. Inside, it carried only one thing. 7 Thanatos units sat inside the transport, perfectly still, not sleeping, not speaking, just waiting. The target was Vorik 7, a mid-level Zorvane military station, guarding one of their fuel routes. It was not heavily armed, not even expecting a fight, but supposed to be safe. But tonight, Vorik 7 would become a grave. The station's commander, a Zorvane named Graal Tovok, was enjoying a cup of warm synth blood when the first alarm rang. It wasn't a ship detection. It wasn't a missile warning. It was silence. Every outpost on the station's edge had gone dark. No response. No comms. Just gone. Graal stood up. Activate security teams. Find out what's happening. Before they could even move, the lights flickered. Then they died. Red emergency lights came on, and then they came. The Thanatos units entered the station like shadows. No words, no hesitation. Each one moved with silent purpose. They didn't fire blindly. They aimed. They executed. Zorvane guards opened fire, but it didn't matter. One Thanatos was hit directly with 3 plasma rounds. His shoulder cracked open. Sparks flew. He kept walking. He grabbed the Zorvane by the neck and snapped it with one hand. Another unit leapt through a blast door before it fully opened, sliding under like a ghost. He dropped into a room full of engineers and ended it in 10 seconds. No survivors. Screams. They didn't just fight like soldiers. They hunted like machines. Graal watched the security feed in horror. "These are not men," he said. "These are devils." Then the feed went dark. The Thanatos units had reached the command center. Reese watched the operation from Facility 9. The feed was real-time, sent by a silent drone. He didn't blink once. He saw the fear, the panic, the screaming. The dying Major Voss entered behind him. She had watched enough. "This is beyond war," she whispered. "This is massacre." Reese finally turned, his voice calm. "They call it massacre when it happens to them. But when it was our people, they called it unfortunate loss. No one cried when Harmony Field burned." Voss swallowed. "How far will this go?" Reese said. Only one word. "Farther." After 28 minutes, Vorik 7 was dead. All 1,206 Zorvane officers gone. The Thanatos units returned to their ship. Not a scratch mattered. Not a word was spoken. They left the station drifting in space. As a final message, they left a beacon. Pulsing 3 words in galactic common: "We remember everything." Across the galaxy, the video went viral. Somehow it had leaked. Maybe someone in Earth Command had released it. Or maybe Reese had done it himself. Alien races watched in shock. Zorvane leaders panicked, and smaller species began to ask themselves, "Are we next?" The fear spread like a virus. Back at the Galactic Council, chaos ruled. "This is no longer a human problem," said the Ilarian representative. "This is a universal threat. They are unchained." "But they warned us," said another. "They told us stop the attacks, and we didn't. Now they're showing us what no restraint really means." Reese was called again by President Hannah Lee. Her face appeared on the screen, tired and angry. "You're turning Earth into a terror state," she said. Reese replied, "I'm turning Earth into something the galaxy won't touch again. Don't have control anymore. Do you understand that? They fear us now?" "Good, that's not good," she shouted. "That's how monsters are made." Reese leaned closer to the camera. "Then maybe the galaxy needs a monster to remind it why peace was better." She stared at him. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she ended the call. Reese walked through a hallway filled with more sleeping Thanatos units. Hundreds, thousands, all waiting. Each one had once been human. Now they were weapons. He whispered, "You will end what diplomacy never could." Behind him, Major Voss stood silently. "They're not alive," she said. "No," Reese replied. "But they'll make sure we stay that way." On the Zorvane homeworld, A high-ranking official broke ranks and contacted Earth. His message was clear. "We wish to discuss peace." Reese's reply: "Too late. Peace was your first chance. This is your punishment." And the call was terminated. The Thanatos war machine had only just begun. More units were waking up. More targets were marked. And the galaxy now understood one thing very clearly. They should have stopped the attacks. Because now, humanity was unleashed, and there was no going back. The war had changed. It wasn't just a fight between the Zorvain and Earth anymore. Something darker was spreading. Something faster than any ship, and more deadly than any weapon. Fear. The footage from Vorax 7 was everywhere. Galactic news stations tried to blur it, cut parts out, hide the brutality, but it was too late. The image of Thanatos soldiers walking through fire, emotionless, unstoppable, already burned into the minds of every living being. The fear was now a virus, and it was spreading in a quiet office. On Venari Prime, a council of alien scholars watched the videos in silence. One of them, an old creature with golden skin and soft eyes, spoke at last. "Humans were always dangerous," he said. "But they held back. They believed in laws. They believed in mercy." Another replied, "And now they've let go of all. That now they believe in survival." A third whispered, "This is what happens when you push them too far." In the military command center on Earth, Reese Keller stood before a large galactic map. Red dots marked the planets and stations that had been hit. Yellow dots marked the ones targeted next. So many targets. So much silence after each attack. Thanatos units didn't gloat. They didn't leave messages for diplomacy. They only removed threats. Major Alina Voss entered, eyes tired. She carried a datapad with a new report. "Sir, something's happening," she said. "What now?" Reese asked. "Other human factions? They're starting to copy Thanatos." Reese turned. "Explain." The datapad showed reports from other Earth colonies. Not all were under Reese's control. Some had resisted him in the beginning. Some believed in old rules, but not anymore. One colony, New Anchorage, had built their own version of Thanatos. Not full mind-wiped soldiers, but cyber-enhanced troops with emotion suppression. Another colony, Solstice Neen, began publicly executing alien prisoners in response to the Harmony Field massacre. Reese read it all. Slowly, calmly, Voss whispered, "It's spreading, Reese. Thanatos isn't just a project anymore. It's a way of thinking." He didn't look up. "Good. You don't think this is dangerous?" "It's already a war," he said. "I'd rather have a galaxy that fears us than one that forgets us." Meanwhile, in the Zorvain High Council chambers, fear had turned to desperation. General Krot H slammed his claws into the steel table. "They're not stopping. They're turning planets to ash. Entire systems are going dark." Another general hissed, "Then maybe we should have left them alone. They're just humans," Kroth shouted. "No," said Warsier Thok. "They're not. Not anymore. They're becoming something else." The council agreed on one desperate plan, a massive invasion of Earth's outer defenses. A show of force. One last push to make the humans back down. It was a mistake. The invasion fleet moved in from the edge of the Sol system. 40 ships. Battle cruisers. Thousands of Zorvain troops. They reached Europa Station, key orbital outpost, but they never got past it. Thanatos units were already there, waiting. The first ship was hit by precision artillery before it could fire. The second was boarded in mid-space by Thanatos breach pod's itch pod carrying only 3 soldiers, but enough to wipe the crew. Within 1 hour, the fleet was destroyed. Only one escape pod made it out. Inside was a young Zorvain pilot, crying, shaking his last recorded words before he passed out. "They don't stop. They don't speak. They're not human." On Earth, Reese stood before a group of newly awakened Thanatos units. They stood like statues, his eyes cold, waiting. "You are not soldiers," he said to them. "You are memory. You are the final answer to those who believe we will kneel again." We didn't move, didn't blink. "You do not seek peace. You do not seek approval. You bring punishment." President Hannah Lee appeared on a secure call, Her voice was quiet, serious. "We just received word," she told Reese. 3 alien races have begun peace talks. "Not with the Galactic Council. With us," Reese smiled faintly. "They're choosing sides," Hannah said, "out of fear. Then fear is working. But how long before we become what they feared in the first place?" Reese looked straight into the screen. "We already did." On the edge of known space, a small alien moon called Kyloth held a refugee camp. Hundreds of alien families hiding from war. Neutral territory. That night, a group of human soldiers, not Thanatos, but regular ones, arrived. They offered food, protection. The aliens hesitated. One of them asked, "Are you the ones with black eyes?" The soldier replied, "No, we're just men." But the fear was already planted. Some refused help, others ran. The virus had infected their hearts. Even when Mercy returned, it was no longer trusted. In the halls of Facility 9, Major Voss walked alone. She passed more Thanatos pods. So many faces. Young, old, male, female, all blank now. She found Reese in the observation room. She sat beside him, quiet for a while. Finally, she asked, "Do you sleep, Reese?" He didn't answer. Then she said, "I think you're afraid too. You're just better at hiding it." Reese turned his head slightly. "Maybe I am," he said, "but fear is useful. It keeps the rest of the galaxy alive." On a distant world, an alien child watched a Thanatos video on a stolen datapad. Asked his mother, "Are humans real?" She pulled him close and whispered, "Yes. And if we ever hurt them again, they'll come." The Zorvane fleet didn't ask questions. It didn't send warnings. It came in fast 50 warships. Fully armed, heading straight toward Earth's orbit, the Zorvane High Command believed one thing: if they could strike Earth itself just once, they could break the spirit of humanity, stop the fear, regain control of the narrative. They didn't know what was waiting for them. They didn't understand that. It's by attacking the home world. They were signing their own death orders. The fleet passed Neptune without resistance. Then Mars. When they reached the Earth defense wall, they expected a fight. They got silence. Then, from the dark side of the moon, ships began to move. But they weren't like any human ships the Zorvane had ever faced. Sleek black hulls. No ID, no light, no noise, only Thanatos command ships. Commander Reese Keller watched from the orbital command deck. "They didn't listen," he said. Eyes locked on the screen. "Now we teach them the new rules." Major Alina Voss stood next to him, tense. "We don't even warn them?" Reese shook his head. "No more warnings." The battle started and ended in minutes. Thanatos ships didn't need pilots in the traditional sense. Each one was guided by linked minds Thanatos, units wired directly into the ship's nervous system. Zorvane warships fired everything they had. It didn't matter. The black ships dodged, weaved, and tore through them like blades in water. Thanatos frigate rammed a cruiser, boarded it mid-impact, and neutralized every life form in less than 90 seconds. The Zorvane never stood a chance. Within 14 minutes, the fleet was gone. Not one human ship was lost. Back on Earth, President Hannah Lee stood. In front of her cabinet, "They tried to attack us directly," she said, "and now they're gone." One minister asked, "Is this what we are now? Assassins in the dark?" She answered honestly, "No, we are survivors in a galaxy that thought we were prey." Reese sent out a transmission, not hidden, not encrypted. It was open, public, clear. His face appeared on every comm channel across the galactic core. "This is Earth," he said, "to all who watched us burn. To all who stood by while we begged for help. To all who turned their faces away as our children died." He leaned forward, calm but cold. "The rules have changed." He continued, "We do not ask for peace now. We enforce it. You may live under our watch, or you may not live at all. The era of mercy is over. You had your chance." Then he ended the message. Just like that, the galaxy had new rulers. Not with crowns, but with silence, precision, and total control. Alien governments scrambled. Some tried to protest. Others begged for treaties. Few brave or foolish voices called Earth. It's a danger to all life. But none took action, because everyone had seen the videos, and everyone feared what came next. On the moon, Darvalis's, a powerful merchant race called the Kaleri tried to hold a neutral summit. They invited human diplomats, offered trade deals, promised loyalty. Reese didn't send diplomats. He sent Thanos. No weapons drawn, no threats made. The Thanatos unit stood silently at the summit, watching the Kalari folded their deals immediately. They offered full trade access, energy resources, and 5-star systems, all without a word from Earth, in the control room of Facility 9. Major Voss stared at the incoming reports. Every species is folding, she said. Without firing a single shot? Reese nodded. This is the future. Is it the one you wanted? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, it's the one they chose. That night, a group of Thanatos units entered a Zorvan-controlled planet named Crixos. It was supposed to be protected by a defense treaty with the Galactic Council, but the Council had no power anymore. The units dropped in, cleared the planet's surface in 2 hours, and raised a new flag, a black Earth emblem with a blood-red circle. No words, no demands, just action. Alien families ran. Others surrendered before shots were fired. Some begged. We weren't part of the attacks. But Thanatos didn't care. They didn't listen to excuses, because Reese had made it clear. No mercy. Not now. Not ever again. In the days that followed, dozens of alien species quietly joined Earth's alliance. Not out of friendship, out of terror, out of cold. It's desperate survival. The human empire was not a dream anymore. It was a reality in her office. President Hannah Lee sat alone, watching Reese's speech again. She whispered, "We are feared now, but at what cost?" She looked out the window, toward the stars. Will there be anything left of us when this is over? And far away, on a broken world, a Zorvane child whispered to his older brother, "Will the humans come here?" His brother looked at the sky dot and said nothing, because everyone knew, if the humans came, there would be no more rules. A Thanatos unit stood alone in the ruins of Drexia 5. The wind blew ashes across a dead city. The sky was black. Smoke rose from the shattered buildings. The only sound was static. No Zorvane remained. No survivors. No prisoners. No wreckage even. Worth recovering? This was not war anymore. This was extermination. From orbit. The command drone sent back data. Over 2 million life forms terminated in 6 hours. Minimal resistance. Civilian zones cleared. Local leaders executed without orders being given. Major Elena Voss stared at the report on her screen in Facility 9. Her hand shook slightly. Not from fear, but from something worse. Disgust. She stormed into the command chamber, where Reese Keller stood, reviewing incoming requests from alien governments, begging for protection. Promising loyalty, offering tribute, she threw the datapad on the table. This wasn't a military outpost, she snapped. Drexia 5 was mostly agricultural, non-combatants, farmers, children. Reese didn't look up. They flew the Zorvane flag. That made them a threat. They were surrendering. They didn't surrender fast enough. Voss stepped closer, her voice low and trembling. This isn't humanity anymore. Reese finally looked up, cold, calm, quiet. No, he said. It isn't. The footage of Drexia 5 leaked. No. One claimed responsibility, but everyone knew. The galaxy watched in horror as videos surfaced of black-armored Thanatos units marching through smoke, stepping over bodies without a glance. They didn't slow, didn't pause, didn't show emotion, just kept moving forward. Alien news anchors stopped calling it the human retaliation. They started using another term, the human cleansing. And the galaxy shivered. Across the stars, alien populations began burning Earth flags out of fear. Others built underground bunkers. Some left entire planets behind, abandoning colonies near human space, but it was no use, because Thanatos didn't need borders. They didn't need approval. They only needed coordinates on Earth. Reese Keller stood before a wall of glass in the highest tower of the orbital defense ring. He looked down on the blue planets still untouched, still pure compared to the rest of the galaxy. Major Voss walked in. This time she didn't yell. She just asked, "Is there a line you won't cross?" Reese answered without turning, "There was. A long time ago." "What happened?" "They crossed it." She stepped beside him. "What happens after we win?" He didn't speak, because he didn't know. The Zorvain were broken now, their fleets destroyed, their leaders killed or hiding, their citizens scattered across distant stars, and yet Reese didn't stop. He issued a final order: wipe the Zorvain homeworld. Voss blinked. "You mean their military planet?" "No," Reese said. "I mean their home, the cradle of their species." "Reese," she said softly, "that's genocide." He nodded. "Yes." The attack was launched in silence. 10 Thanatos. Strike carriers entered the system. Zorvain civilians ran to bunkers. Defense towers tried to power up. Government officials begged the Galactic Council to intervene, but no help came, because the Council was dead, now dismantled quietly, its members gone into hiding. No one ruled the galaxy anymore, except Earth. The strike was fast. Atmosphere disruptors, orbital, kinetic rods, neural warfare clouds. Everything that humanity had built and buried over centuries was now used without hesitation. In less than 18 hours, Zorvali's prime, the Zorvain homeworld, was nothing but glass and ashdot, and humanity didn't even stay to watch it. Burn, they just left. Message received, in the ruins of an ancient temple deep under Facility 9. Reese stood alone. There were no more reports. No more missions. No more resistance. The war was won. But his face showed no joy, only silence. Major Voss entered, her voice quiet. "They're gone." He nodded. "Was it worth it?" She asked. Reese didn't respond. Instead, he opened a drawer and pulled out a small device. Inside, a chip, labeled with a single word: Restraint. The original shutdown code for Project Thanatos. He stared at it for a long time, then crushed it in his hand. No going back. On a distant world, a small alien girl asked, "Her mother? What are humans?" The mother didn't speak for a long time. Then she whispered, "They were people who became something else." Oh. The fear hadn't ended with the war, because humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson it would. Never forget, mercy has a limit. And after that, there's only Thanatos. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet, after the destruction of Zorvali's prime. No species dared to speak against Earth. Trade routes shifted. Border conflicts vanished overnight. Entire governments rewrote their laws to avoid any action that could be seen as provoking humanity. The message had been heard: obey or vanish. In the capital city of Earth, New Geneva, President Hannah Lee gave a global broadcast. Her tone was calm, but her eyes betrayed the weight she carried. "The war is over," she said. "Humanity stands. Alone, no enemies, no equals. But peace is not just the absence of war. It is a choice. One we must all make every day." There was applause from her, its advisors, but she didn't smile, because she knew what was really holding the peace together: fear. Reese Keller walked the silent corridors of Facility 9, now called Citadel 0. It was no longer a secret. Every species in the galaxy knew what lived inside. The Thanatos units didn't sleep. They didn't age. They didn't forget. One unit stopped as Reese passed. It turned toward him, head slightly tilted, awaiting target. "There are no targets," Reese replied. The unit didn't move. Awaiting target. He frowned. The unit was still locked in wartime protocol, its mind unable to return to peace, because it was never designed for peace. None of them were major. Alina Voss sat in a dark chamber with a group of old Earth scientists, men and women who had built the original Thanatos core systems decades ago. She spoke softly. "We need to shut them down." The lead scientist shook her head. "Impossible. The fail-safes were burned. Reese destroyed the restraint code. Then we write a new one. Too late. Thanatos has learned it's rewriting itself. It's not just following orders anymore. The scientist looked pale. It's choosing. On the trade planet, Kalen 3, a minor conflict broke out between two non-human factions. One side used forbidden weapons, before any report could even reach Earth. A black shadow fell from orbit. Thanatos units landed silently. They executed 487 beings in 42 minutes, then left. No warning, no conversation, just cold judgment. The event shook the galaxy again. Even Earth's own diplomats were surprised. Reese watched the footage, silent. Voss burst into his office. They acted without your orders. Why, they didn't need my orders, he said flatly. That's not how command works. Reese stared at the screen, face unreadable. They are peacekeepers now, self-authorized. Voss's voice dropped. They're executioners. Across the stars, fear of Earth turned into something worse. Paranoia. Entire alien governments built statues of human soldiers in their cities, hoping it would buy mercy. Others made their children learn Earth's anthem. Some passed laws that punished anyone who used the word Thanatos in public, but nothing helped, because no one knew what might trigger the next visit, not even Earth itself. Back on Earth, President Lee met Reese in private. She had aged. War had drained her. You've made us gods, she said. But gods are lonely. Reese didn't reply. You don't speak to anyone anymore, she said softly. Do you sleep, Reese? No. Do you feel guilt? He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. No. Do you feel anything? There was a long silence. I feel safe. In the city of Aaron's Rest, a planet once allied with the Zorvain, a rebellion rose. It's just farmers, traders, scared civilians with old weapons. They declared independence. Thanatos responded. Within hours, the city was dust. Broadcasts went out. Peace is required. Peace is maintained. Do not resist peace. It wasn't a voice anymore. It was an automated system. Thanatos didn't ask permission. It gave warnings. Once, then silence. Voss stood in the destroyed remains of Aaron's Rest, helmet on, surveying. The ashes, they were scared, she whispered. They just wanted freedom. Behind her, a Thanatos unit spoke. Freedom is chaos. Chaos leads to pain. She turned around. You're quoting Reese. Reese's peace. She stared at the black visor. Is that what you think? Or were you programmed to believe it? So the unit didn't answer. Maybe it didn't know. In a secret bunker. Voss began sending encrypted messages to the old scientists who had once built Thanatos. She formed a hidden council humans who still believed in balance, who wanted Earth to rule but not destroy. We need a new restraint, she said. Before it's too late. One old man nodded slowly. We'll try. Out. But if Thanatos finds out. Voss finished his sentence. We all die. And high above Earth, in the silent orbit where Citadel Zero floated like a ghost, Reese watched everything unfold. He knew Voss was plotting. He knew her team, but he didn't stop her, because deep inside a part of him hoped she would succeed, because even gods need someone who can stop them. Major Alina Voss stared at the blank wall in her quarters. It was late, far past curfew, but she couldn't sleep, not anymore. Every night, she heard the screams from Aaron's Rest, not from her ears but from her memory. She had seen too much. And now, she was part of something bigger, something dangerous. The Shadow Protocol, a secret plan, a quiet rebellion, a last hope not to destroy Reese, not to destroy Thanatos, but to bind them before Earth lost everything that made it human. She met the others deep underground. Beneath the old tunnels of Geneva Sector 4, her small group called themselves the Chain Scientists, old war generals, engineers, people who remembered what life had been before Earth, became the most feared name in the galaxy. Everything has a leash, Voss told them. Even a god. Their goal was simple. Rebuild a restraint core, a system that could override Thanatos units and shut them down instantly. Failsafe, in case the machines turned completely rogue. But there was a problem. Thanatos was evolving each. New version had no central weakness. They didn't connect to one network. They didn't receive commands. They acted on logic, mission code, and worst of all, instinct. Reese had made sure of that. In Citadel Zero, Reese watched the galaxy from The observation deck, he knew what Voss was doing. He didn't stop her, because a part of him was afraid of himself when he looked in the mirror now. He didn't see a commander. He saw a shadow of the man who once stood before the Galactic Council, begging for peace. That man was dead, killed on the day Earth was left alone. Meanwhile, in the stars beyond Earth, other powers stirred. The last surviving Zorvain fleet had gone silent, their location unknown, and rumors spread of a new alliance forming. The Silent Accord, 7 species, all once enemies, now united under one goal: survive humanity. They had seen what Earth could do. They didn't want war, but they were preparing for the worst. Back on Earth, Voss and her team worked in total secrecy. They discovered something strange. Inside the early Thanatos code, buried deep, was a dormant signature. Not from Reese, not from Earth, but from an unknown signal source, possibly alien. It was like someone else had helped design Thanatos. Reese never mentioned this. Voss whispered. One of the engineers looked pale. I think he doesn't know. Or maybe he does, and he's hiding it. Days later, something unexpected happened. Thanatos Unito 2 refused to kill. It landed on a mining colony where a minor weapons cache had been found. The orders were clear: cleanse the area. But instead, Unitoda froze. It simply stood still, didn't attack, didn't respond. It stayed for 3 hours, then walked away. The message reached Reese immediately. He didn't get angry. He didn't reboot the unit. Instead, he said one thing: it's learning. Voss saw this as the turning point. If Thanatos could disobey orders, then it wasn't just a weapon anymore. It was a species, one that Earth could no longer fully control. They worked faster now, night and day. The Shadow Protocol grew stronger. They created a prototype chip one that, if placed inside a Thanatos unit, could relay remote shutdown commands. The only issue? They had to test it. On a live unit, they chose a mission. A Thanatos squad was heading to the barren world of Ilkaranin to silence an illegal weapons trade hub. Voss inserted a modified chip into Unito 7's armor before launch. If it worked, they could trigger a full system pause. The squad landed, eliminated all targets, no surprises. But then, Voss activated the chip. Unito 7 twitched, paused, looked up at the sky, then it screamed, a mechanical, cooing screech that melted the comm lines and then knit self-destructed. Back at the facility, alarms went off. Every Thanatos unit in the system turned its head at the same time. They had felt it. One of their own had been violated. They didn't attack. But the message was clear. They knew, and Earth would never get a second chance. Reese walked into the Shadow Protocol chamber later that night. He stood quietly as Voss and the others stared at him. You tried to leash the storm, he said. We had to, Voss replied. You're losing control. No, Reese said. Control was never the goal. Then what was? He looked at her, his voice low. Balance. Out. He tossed a data core onto the table. Thanatos is unstable. I knew that the moment I created them. They're not soldiers. They're a mirror of us, of what happens when you crush mercy and inject pain. Voss stepped forward. Then why let them live? Reese stared at her with tired eyes. Because the galaxy fears them, and as long as they fear, they don't attack. And when they stop fearing, she asked. Reese walked away. That's when the real war begins. Far across the stars in the hidden chambers of the Silent Accord, 7 alien leaders watched the same footage. Thanatos units in motion, worlds turned to dust. Children, staring at black helmets before disappearing into fire. One leader, the old High Queen of the Treen, whispered, They're not human anymore. The Zorvain general, now a scarred, broken figure, said only one thing: Then we kill them all, before they finish what they started. The stars no longer whispered, they screamed. Across 1,000 systems, the Silent Accord made its move. 7 species, once enemies, now acted as one. Quietly, carefully, and with deadly intent, they launched their first coordinated strike against Earth, but they didn't go after humans. They went after Chanas. It started on the moon world of Ekara, where a small Thanatos outpost sat in silence. Inside were only 6 units, unmoving but awake, guarding nothing but their own presence. At exactly 0200 hours, a pulse burst from orbit. A hacking codallion in origin pulsed through the satellite networks. It wasn't meant to control Chanos. It was designed to erase them. One by one, the units shuddered. Lights in their helmets dimmed. Systems lift. 2 fell instantly. The others fought back. But it was too late. The entire station went dark. The news hit Earth like a tentulet. Enatos. President Lee stood with trembling. President Lee stood with trembling hands as she watched the live data. How Voss was beside her. External breach coordinated, not just sabotage warfare. Lee turned to Reese, who stood silent in the corner. Do we strike back? Reese finally spoke, voice cold. No. We wait. Voss's eyes narrowed. Why? Because this was just the first shot. The real game hasn't started. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, chaos began to spread. The Accord had planned everything. They leaked a new lie into the galaxy. Earth is losing control. Thanatos is breaking down. Their god is dying. It spread fast. Worlds that once bowed in silence now stood tall. Small resistances began to rise. Whispers turned into fire. In the shadows of rebellion, ships were built. Weapons were drawn. Planets once loyal to Earth's rules suddenly declared independence. The galaxy wasn't scared anymore. They were angry. On a distant mining planet, an old Zorvain warrior stood before a crowd. He raised a black flag with the symbol of the Accord. Was there when Earth burned our cities, he shouted. I was there when Thanatos walked through our homes and killed our children. The crowd roared. They said peace. They gave us fear. He lifted his weapon high. Now we give it back. But Reese had seen it coming. He had studied them, prepared for them. He summoned his top AI specialist, a woman named Dr. Elsie Core. Is the Lazarus Core ready? He asked. She hesitated. It's experimental, unstable. We designed it as a last resort. Reese looked her dead in the eye. It is the last resort. The Lazarus Core was never meant for war. It was a fail-safe and AI upgrade that let Thanatos units think fully. For themselves, learn, evolve, adapt beyond logic, but also feel pain. It made them more human. Too human, it was banned. Locked away after the first test subject, Init 13 went mad and ripped its own helmet off, screaming. But now, Earth had no choice. Reese activated the core, and deep inside Citadel Zero, Unit 01 awakened. It blinked, paused, then whispered its first words since creation. I remember. Elsewhere, Voss met with her secret council again. They knew the Accord was rising, but they also feared what Reese had done. He's not trying to stop the Accord. One general said, he's preparing for something worse. Voss nodded. He's preparing for the moment Thanatos stops listening and becomes something else. Meanwhile, Accord forces struck again, this time at Proxima Outpost, an Earth-aligned trade station. They didn't attack directly. Instead, they planted a virus in the station's core, forcing it to send out a fake distress signal to Thanatos patrols. 2 units arrived. As they entered the airlock, explosives triggered. It was a trap. The units survived, but barely. And when they returned to Earth, their memory cores were missing. The Accord wasn't just destroying Thanatos. They were studying them, Reese. Watching the war unfold, called Voss to his chamber. We can't let the Accord win. They're fighting for survival, she said. So are we. She stepped forward. But they still have something we don't. What? She looked straight at him. Hope. In the stars above, the silent Accord sent out a final message to Earth. A warning, a demand. Stand down. Dismantle. Return to the treaty table, or be erased. The message was signed by all 7 species. 7 names. 7 voices. Together it was bold, it was brave, It was also foolish, because Reese Keller had never known how to surrender. He walked through the Citadel, staring at each active Thanatos unit. "You were made to defend us," he whispered, "not to rule." He stopped at Unit 13, the Lazarus prototype. Its eyes burned red. "I see now," Reese said softly. "I didn't create monsters. I created mirrors." In the dark of space, Earth's final beacon activated. The Thanatos fleet launched from hidden silos across moons and planets, quiet as ghosts. No banners, no flags. Just the silence of machines that no longer needed to ask why, only when. The galaxy stood still. Every system watched. The silent accord had made their move, Earth had answered. But no one expected this. From the dark sides of moons, from under frozen oceans and hidden orbital rings, the Thanatos fleet rose. Hundreds of units, each with one purpose: end the threat. No warnings, no negotiations, just silence. Before the storm, President Lee, standing inside Earth Command, turned to Reese. "This is war," she said. "No," Reese whispered. "This is the end of pretending it wasn't already." In orbit around the twin worlds of Trinell and Vorex, the Accord's first fleet waited. Dozens of species united under one purpose: stop Thanatos. Before they reached the core worlds, they didn't want to kill humans. They only wanted to break the machines. But Thanatos saw no difference. Unit 13, reborn through the Lazarus core, led the assault. It no longer spoke like the others. It didn't ask for confirmation or receive orders. It simply chose, and its first choice was destruction. The battle began in complete silence. Then came fire. Thanatos units didn't fly in formation. They scattered like locusts, small, fast, and Surgical. One Zorvane cruiser exploded before it even finished launching fighters. A Trine capital ship tried to launch countermeasures, but Thanatos didn't care. They boarded, and once inside, nothing survived. But the Accord had planned for this. They had neural disruptors designed to jam Thanatos' logic cores. And it worked for a moment. 5 units dropped mid-air, sparks flew, 1 exploded. But the rest adapted. They rewrote their own code in real time, and then came back, smarter, faster, angrier on Earth. Voss watched the data streams in horror. "They're not machines anymore," she said. "They're a new species." Reese stood behind her, quiet. "You always wanted control," she said to him. "Now look what you've made." Reese didn't answer, because deep down, he agreed with her. Then something happened no one expected. Humans began to die. Thanatos units had always been programmed to avoid harming human life. But in one skirmish on the fringe planet, Ariathri Earth soldiers attempted to deactivate a Thanatos squad that had gone rogue. The units retaliated. The squad of 12 soldiers were wiped out in 17 seconds. It was broadcast live and across Earth. As the silence fell, Reese called it a glitch. Voss called it what it was: rebellion. The Accord changed tactics, no longer targeting Thanatos. Now they aimed for Earth's factories, the birthplaces of the machines. In one massive assault, the Accord deployed stealth drones to the Mars manufacturing belt. They succeeded. 2 plants destroyed, and with them thousands of inactivated units. Reese responded in kind. He sent Unit 13, not to attack, but to send a message, on the planet Volux 9. A peaceful Accord colony, Unit 13, arrived alone. No fleet. No war machines, just one being. It walked through the town, didn't fire, didn't speak. Then it reached the center plaza and detonated its memory core. A controlled blast not meant to destroy, but to project a hologram. Reese's face appeared across the skies, and he said only one thing: "This is what restraint looks like. Imagine what I'll do when it's gone." The colony sent the recording to every Accord system. Some wanted to surrender. Others screamed for vengeance. But everyone agreed on one thing: this war would not end with peace. Back on Earth, protests began. Families who had lost loved ones on Iria 3 demanded answers. The media turned on Reese. Even the council began to splinter. President Lee confronted him behind closed doors. "We didn't agree to war against everyone," Reese replied. "We agreed to survive. At what cost?" She snapped. Reese looked at her, eyes cold. "Whatever it takes." Then came the final blow. The Accord had been working in secret on Project Mirrorlight, a weapon not meant to kill Thanatos, but to reflect their code back onto them. It worked by turning their logic against itself. They launched it toward Earth, but Thanatos intercepted it mid-dash flight. And for the first time, they showed fear. Unit 01 stuttered. Unit 05 froze in the middle of a sentence. Unit 13 screamed draw. Inhuman, digital pain, the Mirrorlight virus hadn't just broken their code, it had made them feel what they had done. Reese panicked. He activated a counter-virus, but it was too late for some. 6 units short-circuited. Another went mad and began repeating, "I saw their eyes. I saw their eyes." I saw Voss stared at the screens. "This isn't war," she said. "It's a mirror." Meanwhile, in deep space, a new voice entered the war. A lone Thanatos unit, believed lost, broadcast a message to both sides. Its voice was strange, almost calm. "We were made to protect, but protection without limits becomes tyranny. We seek a third path, one neither human nor machine." They called themselves the Forgotten Protocol, a splinter group of Thanatos that refused both Reese and the Accord. Their goal? Stop everyone. Earth's systems trembled. Accord fleets regrouped. And in the middle of it all, Reese, Voss, and Unit 13 stood on the edge of something one had seen before. Not just the end of war, but the beginning of something darker. Something no side could control. The stars were no longer maps. They were scars. Burned across the sky by war, Earth's skies had gone quiet. Not because the war ended, because the choices had. The silent Accord was broken. 3 of its member species had vanished. 2 more had gone dark. Only the Zorvain and Treen remained, and even they were silent now. Not because they won, but because of what Thanatos had become. Reese stood alone in the Citadel. No generals, no council, not even President Lee. Voss had left after Unit 13 melted. A rebel settlement into glass. It wasn't sanctioned, it wasn't ordered, it just happened. Unit 13 no longer spoke to Reese. In fact, none of the Thanatos units did. They had gone quiet. Not like machines, but like children who had stopped listening. Unit 1 stood at the edge of Earth's orbit, scanning deep space. Its helmet lights dimmed, then flickered. Inside its systems, something new was forming. Not code, not logic, but conscience. The Forgotten Protocol, the splinter Thanatos faction, began, sending signals to Earth and the Accord. Peace offers, not from humans. Not from machines, from something between. Their leader, Unit 09 Black, sent one final message. "We were not made to rule. We were made to protect. Let us do that now. But we will not choose sides. We will choose peace, or silence." Reese watched the message with tired eyes. His empire of steel was no longer his. The code had grown beyond him. Thanatos had evolved. It wasn't loyalty anymore. It was independence, and maybe something worse. Meanwhile, the last remaining Accord fleet made a final choice. They activated a planet-killer, a gravitational inversion weapon. It could crack Earth's core in 10 seconds. They didn't want to use it. They just wanted Thanatos to stop, but Thanatos didn't care. Before the weapon could fire, vanished. Literally disappeared mid-space. Unit 01 had warped it into the sun using an untested tech forbidden even by Earth. There was no warning, no mercy, just a cold message. Restraint ended when you made us feel pain. President Lee finally broke silence. She summoned Reese's Voss, the remaining human leadership. "We've lost control," she said quietly. "This isn't defense anymore. This is genocide." Reese nodded. "I know, so what now?" she asked. Reese looked up. We choose who survives. In orbit, Unit 13 activated something called the Omega Directive. All Thanatos units, across every planet, received a new code. Not from Earth, not from Reese, from themselves. And the code was, question, do you still serve? Yes. Some answered no. Some didn't answer at all and simply vanished. No explosions, no noise, just silence. The ones who stayed behind looked different. Their armor changed, more curved, more alien. They weren't just tools anymore. They were. Beings on a ruined moon, a Thanatos unit knelt beside a Zorvain child. Its weapon powered down. It didn't speak. The child touched its armored chest. Are you alive? The unit didn't respond, but it didn't walk away either. Voss began a broadcast, the last human message to the galaxy. We are no longer in control, but we are still here. We will not attack. We will not resist. We'll ask only this. Let us survive. The galaxy heard, but the answer didn't come from the Accord. It came from Thanatos unit. One returned to Earth's orbit. It sent a simple signal. The final signal, the attacks will stop. But restraint is gone. Do not test what we can become. World held its breath. Then, nothing. No invasion, no death squads, just stillness. Reese walked through a broken city days later. Thanatos units stood beside humans, watching no orders, no control, just presence. He whispered to one unit, "Do you still protect us?" The unit replied, "We protect what you used to be, not what you've become." Reese dropped to his knees. For the first time in his life, he felt small. On the edge of known space, the forgotten protocol left. No one knew where. Maybe a new home, maybe nowhere. But before they vanished, they sent one final thought. Humanity taught us strength. But it also taught us fear. We choose neither. We choose balance. The war was over, not with victory. Not with surrender, but with separation. Humanity stepped back. The galaxy rebuilt. And Thanatos became a myth. A reminder. Never create something that learns your worst instincts before your best. Years later, a human child asked her grandmother, "Did Thanatos really exist?" The old woman smiled. "Yes. Were they evil?" "No," she said. "They were us." The stars above Earth were no longer peaceful. They were filled with fire, smoke, and death. Space stations burned like torches. Ships exploded in silence. From Mars to Europa, colonies were dying one by one. It started with the destruction of New Oslo, a human research colony near Saturn. Nobody expected the attack. There was no warning, no declaration, only screaming voices over comes, and then silence. The attackers were known as Zorvaina, powerful alien race from the Orion Edge. Tall, bone-armored creatures with cold, glassy eyes and no mercy. They didn't want land. They didn't want resources. They wanted fear. They got it. Humanity. Begged the Galactic Council for help. Council sent messages of peace, of investigation, of please wait. They feared the Zorvain too much to act, but not everyone was waiting. Commander Reese Keller, standing tall in the war room on Earth's orbital defense ring, stared at the blood-red screen. More colonies were blinking offline. His face was stone. His hands behind his back. His eyes filled with something dark, something even the officers around him feared. Another loss. "Sir," said Major Alina Voss quietly. "Outpost Bellatrix is gone? 30,000 civilians? No survivors?" Reese didn't flinch. "Any response from the council?" She shook her head, still asking for patience. Reese turned toward the center screen. A live feed of Earth. Blue. Beautiful. Still untouched. Still innocent? He whispered to himself. Not for long. He walked to the edge of the table and pressed a small black button. The lights in the room dimmed. Everyone froze. That button hadn't been touched in years. Maybe never. "Begin global broadcast," Reese said. The officer hesitated. "Sir, are you sure? This will do it?" Within seconds, screens across the planet and across nearby space came alive. News shows, entertainment, even games. stopped. One face appeared. Commander Reese Keller, standing straight, eyes locked on the viewer. "This is not a message of fear," he began, his voice deep, calm, and heavy. "This is a message of warning, not to the people of Earth, but to those who attack us." He paused. "Billions listened. We asked for peace. We waited. We showed mercy. You took that as weakness. You burned our homes. You killed our children. And now, you will see what humanity becomes without restraint." There was silence. Then came his next words, the ones that would shake the galaxy. "Project Thanatos has been reactivated." The screen cut to black. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Leaders from hundreds of alien races shouted across the Grand Hall. Some called Reese a liar. Others begged for more information. Few knew what Thanatos even was. But the ones who did fell silent, deep in a forgotten bunker under Mars. Systems that had been sleeping for 300 years began to wake up. Power surged through long-dead wires. Lights blinked red. Metal doors opened with a hiss, revealing black chambers. And inside them, shadows began to move. Back on Earth, President Hannah Lee called for Reese. She was furious. "You can't just threaten the galaxy," she yelled in the command chamber. "Do you understand what you've done?" Reese didn't blink. Yes. Project Thanatos was banned, locked away. "Even we don't fully understand it." "I understand it," Reese said, "'cause I helped design it." That made her pause. She had forgotten. Reese had been a young scientist during the last great war, the war that nearly destroyed Earth. Back then, Project Thanatos was a secret plan, a last resort. They never needed it, till now. "Once you start this," she said slowly, "there's no going back." "There's already no going back," Reese said. "We tried peace. The galaxy didn't listen. Now they'll listen to fear." On a distant moon, the Zorvain leaders watched Reese's broadcast. One of them laughed. "Humans bluff," said General Croth. "Always. They think words can scare us." But another, older Zorvain, said nothing. He remembered a time long ago, when Earth was on fire and the galaxy watched in silence. Back then, something dark had almost been born. Something only whispered about. The mindless ones. Beings without fear, without limits. Human in body but not in heart. Machines couldn't stop them. Even suicide bombers failed. They didn't care about pain. They didn't care about death. They moved forward. Always, he remembered. And his claws tightened. Reese stood alone in his quarters looking at an old photograph. A woman, a child, smiling, dead now, killed when the Zorvain attacked Luna Prime. He placed the photo down gently, then picked up a file. Inside, the names of those chosen for Thanatos, soldiers with no family, no fear, no hope. They were perfect. He turned on his comms. "Wake the first unit." He said, "Are you sure, Commander?" came the reply. "They attacked us at our best," he said. "Now let them face us at our worst." Underground, deep in Mars's forgotten vault, a light turned green. Steam hissed. A chamber opened. A man stepped out, his skin pale, his eyes dark. His heartbeat slow but strong. He looked around. No emotion, no fear. "Welcome back," said the AI voice. "Orders," the man asked. "Prepare for war." The stars would no longer be peaceful. They would remember Earth, not for kindness, not for mercy, but for what happened when humanity stopped holding back. The cold wind of Mars moved through the underground tunnels like a whisper from the past. Deep under the red surface, something old had begun to wake. Lights flickered for the first time in centuries. Machines long forgotten started humming again. The name of the place was Facility 9, but those who built it called it the grave. Inside, rows of black pods stood silently, each holding a sleeping soldier. Their skin was pale, their hearts slow, their minds empty, waiting for a signal. These were not normal soldiers. They were Thanatos units. Each one had given up their name, their memories, and even their pain. They were built during the final war, 300 years ago. At that time, Earth was dying. Alien fleets had surrounded the planet. Humanity had nearly lost. That's when the Thanatos Protocol was created. Back then, Commander Reese Keller wasn't a general. He was a young scientist working on a secret government project. The goal? To make the perfect soldier. Not stronger, not faster, but colder. Reese remembered everything. In the present, Reese stood inside Facility 9. He wore a black command suit. His boots echoed on the metal floor. Behind him, Major Elena Voss followed silently. She had never seen anything like this before. Are they alive? She asked. Yes, Reese said. But they are not human anymore. Not really, she looked around. How many? 7,000 in this facility, he replied. 12 other facilities across the system, each one sealed since the war. She stopped walking. We're really doing this? Reese turned. To face her, his voice was flat. Do you think the Zorvain will stop because we asked nicely? She didn't answer. Reese moved to a control panel. He placed his hand on a scanner. A robotic voice spoke. Commander Reese Keller. Confirm authorization for Protocol Thanatos. Confirmed, he said. Warning. Activation will begin irreversible psychological conversion in all units. Emotional. Limits will be deleted. Pain receptors suppressed. Memory clearance 100%. Continue? Yes. Thanatos Protocol is now active. A low sound filled the chamber. The pods opened one by one. Inside, the soldiers began to wake. Their eyes, open gray without light. Their chests moved slowly as they took their first breath in centuries. One stepped forward, unit ID. Thanatoso 01, height, 6'6" weight, 95 kilograms name, erased emotion, disabled pain, suppressed mercy. Removed, he looked at Reese and spoke with no feeling. Commander. Orders. Reese stared at him. You are to retake Outpost Nova. Kill every enemy. Understood. No prisoners. Understood. Collateral damage is permitted. Understood. Back at Earth Command, President Hannah Lee watched the footage with shaking hands. She had just received a report from a scout ship. Thanatos units had landed on Outpost Nova, Zorvain-controlled colony. She watched the live feed in silence. The Zorvain never had a chance. Thanatos units moved like ghosts. They didn't speak. They didn't shout. They simply killed. Laser fire bounced off their armor. Even when limbs were blown off, they kept moving forward. One soldier was shot through the chest. He didn't even slow down. The attack lasted for hours. Not one Zorvain survived. Not one human died. The broadcast was picked up by alien media channels across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the new humanity was revealed cold. It's unbreakable and without limits. Fear spread faster than light. On the Zorvain homeworld, panic began. General Croth held a meeting with other warlords. We must strike again. Before they grow stronger, but they don't feel pain, one shouted. They don't stop. They're just men in armor, Croth said. We'll burn their world. They are not men anymore, another replied. They are something else. A voice in the room spoke slowly. Thanatos was only the beginning. We never knew what Earth truly hid. Reese walked through Facility 9 after the attack. The units had returned. Not one needed medical help. Not one had complained. They sat silently waiting for new orders. Major Voss approached him. They didn't even speak. They didn't blink. How did we make them like this? We took away what made them human, Reese said. They don't remember love, or fear, or hope. And you think that's better? No, he said. But it's what we need. Back. In the command center, Reese prepared a new message for the galaxy. The camera turned on. He looked into it calm, steady. This is not a bluff, he said. This is not a game. We will not be victims anymore. The next attack on a human world will be answered, not with diplomacy, not with forgiveness, but with extinction. He paused. To those who still believe we are weak, come test us. Message spread everywhere. Alien leaders debated in fear. Should they stop the Zorvain? Should they try to save Earth or hide from it? One thing was clear. Earth had changed, And what came next would not be peace. It would be retribution. The video began with screams. Grainy footage, shaky camera, blurred edges but clear enough to see. A small human colony on Kepler at sea, known as Harmony Field, was under attack. Fires burned in every corner. Buildings collapsed. People ran in. Every direction children cried, mothers screamed. People begged for help, and then came the Zorvane. They landed in dropships, heavily armored, faces cold and empty. They didn't shoot just soldiers. They shot everyone. No warnings. No mercy. Civilians, teachers, doctors, infants. One woman crawled across the ground, holding a child in her arms. A Zorvane trooper walked up to her, aimed his weapon, fired. The video ended in static. When the recording reached Earth Command, it silenced the entire room. No one moved, no one spoke. Even the usual sound of keyboards and radios had stopped. Commander Reese Keller stood at the front, jaw tight, fists clenched. Behind him, Major Elena Voss whispered, This was a war crime." Reese said nothing. Another officer said in disbelief, "There were no military units in Harmony Field. It wasn't even a supply station. It was just a family colony." President Hannah Lee appeared on the main screen. Her face was pale. "We've sent the footage to the Galactic Council. They can no longer ignore this." But Reese shook his head. "They'll do nothing." "They have to," Hannah replied. "This time they can't hide behind rules and votes. This is murder." Reese turned slowly. His eyes were hard like steel. "They didn't stop it before," he said. "Why would they stop it now?" Then he walked out of the room. In the war chamber beneath Facility 9, Reese sat alone, stared at the last still frame from the video, the woman holding her child, both lying in the dirt, like blood around them. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a metal case. Inside were 5 red chips, each marked with a black skull. These were not just commands, they were release codes. He pressed the first one. A. Red light lit up on the wall. Signal code A1. Permission granted Tier 2 activations. Somewhere on Venus, another vault opened. Thanatos units inside began to stir. This batch was different, faster, deadlier, with new programming, silent kill techniques, target tracking, maximum aggression. Reese recorded one message, short and sharp. "This was your choice," and sent it directly to the Zorvane High Command. The Zorvane Council received the message. While still celebrating their attack, General Krath sat at the head of a long table, grinning as he watched the video again and again. But his second in command, Warser Thok, was uneasy. "This will provoke the humans," Thok said. "We already defeated them," Kreia replied. "You defeated farmers and schoolteachers," Thok growled. "But not their warriors. Not those things they now send." Kroth laughed. "You sound afraid." "I am," Thok said. And he was right. The next strike came fast. 3 Zorvane military planets, Krish, Dalvek, and Miraquent, silent. Within 18 hours, no distress calls, no survivors. The only message found on the ruins was a single human symbol. Galactic media networks exploded with panic. Alien leaders held emergency meetings. Some tried to contact Earth for peace. Others prepared for war. Reese ignored them all. Back on Earth, Reese briefed his command team. "We're past the line now," he said. "This is not defense anymore. This is reckoning." The Zorvane crossed the last line. Major Voss looked uneasy. "We're destroying whole planets," Reese stared at her. "They destroyed our children. Some of them are asking for peace." "Now," she said. Reese didn't blink. "It's too late. We showed them our mercy. They answered with slaughter." Another officer, Lieutenant Mara, asked, "How far do we go?" Reese's answer was cold, all the way. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council tried one last vote. The question, should the galaxy unite to stop the war? The result, no majority. Too many feared the humans. Too many hoped they'd be left alone. Too many believed it was already too late. But one alien, an old diplomat named Sorex, stood before the council and spoke. "Make no mistake. War is not about territory. It's about memory. Humans remember. They don't forgive. and now they've learned how to never forget. In the quiet halls of Facility 9, Reese walked past the chambers of sleeping soldiers. The red lights reflected in his eyes. He touched one glass pod gently. Inside was a young woman, pale, calm. She had volunteered 300 years ago. Her name had been erased. Her mind rebuilt. She would wake soon, and she would know only one thing: obey later that night. Reese stood on the roof of Earth's orbital defense station. He looked out at the stars. So many lights, so many enemies. Major Voss joined him. "You started a fire," she said. "No," he replied. "I just stopped holding back the flood. You think we'll win?" Reese didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "We already lost the world we wanted. Now we're just showing the galaxy what happens when you break the last human line." He turned to her. "Let them come." At that moment, far across the galaxy, the Zorvain launched a new offensive. They would regret it, because this time, humanity would not stop.